So, hey, it's Paul Diegelman. My team at Fiserv focuses on data aggregation and connectivity. The area that we work in allows consumers to safely connect their data from source systems such as banks or credit unions or billers or mortgage companies, those sorts of platforms, over to third-party apps and other platforms of their choosing for a variety of use cases, which range from payments to financial wellness, which is part of what we'll talk about today, budgeting, wealth management, account identity management, things like that. So, Zach, nice to see you again, and good to see you too, Paul.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Zach. Hi, I'm Paul DeSaulniers from Experian. I lead our data strategy for our direct-to-consumer business, as well as partnerships. If anyone's seen our purple cow on TV, I sure hope you have, and saw John Cena, Experian Boost is our big product in the marketplace about how it can really help consumers in financial wellness. So, my team at Experian, we focus on how we get consumer data into the ecosystem, into the credit ecosystem to really help consumers improve their financial life, not only with their credit report and their credit score, but other services that help them ultimately improve their lives. We have a tagline around Experian, financial power for all is what we're driving through our direct-to-consumer business.
Awesome. And I know neither of you are shy, so I'm not going to direct the questions to anyone specifically. Just jump in, and I would love for you actually to respond to one another. I want to hear first about the nature of the Experian Fiserv integration and what makes this so significant.
So hey, I'll take the first step. So yeah. One of the things we really liked about the Boost product was what it does for consumers, and I'm going to let Paul talk all about that. But our piece of it is around bills, right? So David and Wade in the prior event talked a lot about open finance, open banking, sort of the traditional sense of it and where it's going in the future. And this piece here is a narrow segment of that around consumers and their bills, right? Folks pay bills every month. Some of them are very significant, and because of Fiserv's position in the market around both connectivity and aggregation, as well as we are the largest bank bill provider in the country, we have an amazing array of consumers' permissioned bill data, which we've been able to contribute in this relationship, at the consumer's request with Experian for the Boost product. So what we bring to this part of the conversation is a vast array of bill data. Who got billed what? How much was it? Did they pay it? Were there late fees? Things of that nature. So sort of maybe with that foundational point around the bill data, Paul, I'm going to hand it to you.
Great. Thanks, Paul. And here's what we do with Boost. Just so historically, when we launched Boost a little over 2 years ago, and we have over 6 million consumers that are actively participating in their credit profile for the first time ever. And that's what you traditionally heard from consumers is, all this happens behind the scenes. I can't control any of it. With Experian Boost, we finally gave consumers control. They can add to their credit profile and show lenders, show financial institutions really the full scope of their credit worthiness. Traditionally, we've gone directly to the bank and pulled talk about from open banking, pulling down all the consumers' transactions, their banking transactions, categorize it, run it through a categorization engine, and categorize all their telecom and utility payments. What we found through 2 years in the market is some consumers are concerned about that, and it does vary by segment, but you do have a group of consumers that are concerned about providing banking credentials. So what we did with a partnership with Paul and Fiserv is they can aggregate directly to the utility company. So through our surveys and our focus groups with our consumers are much more comfortable. I'm happy to give you my utility username and password. I'm happy to give my Verizon username and password out. So through the consumer consent and consumer providing those credentials with the Fiserv service, we can reach directly to the utility and pull down all that information for the consumer. The consumer can view it. Yes, I paid AT&T $210 last month for my cell phone bill. Yes, I want to add that to my credit profile. And we add that information directly to their credit profile, and they can go down and go through all of their utilities, put it in, we can pull the information in, add it directly to their credit profile, and improve the consumer's credit score right there. And that's really the the value of this. The average consumer who sees an increase sees a 13-point increase in their credit score. And I always say you have to take yourself out of the prime consumers. Most folks on this call are going to be a prime consumer. You got to take yourself out of that prime consumer's footsteps. When I walk into a car dealership, I sign my name and walk out with a $50,000 car. If you're below prime, that is not your experience. So improving someone's credit score can really be life-changing for them, saving them. We have case studies. We're saving consumers through getting a better auto loan, $120 a month when they go from a 25% auto loan down to a 6% auto loan. I mean, that's a monumental change in a consumer's life. And that's really what we're about at Experian, is helping consumers really improve that financial life. And that's just one of the use cases of it. When you look about credit cards, we've seen consumers increase their 32 million credit points, 32 million points added to consumers' credit scores over the last 2 years. Like, that's just phenomenal. And 65% of consumers, by adding these trade lines, see an increase to their score. So it's just a great story for not only consumers, but for lenders also. And this is the real key piece of it, is consumers who raise their credit score perform at that new credit tier or better. And that's really the unique piece about this whole situation, is consumers that are willing to give more information about them to their lenders are overall better credit risk than consumers who are not. It's a really new piece of credit data that's never been around before. And bringing this to the market has been phenomenal, and it's great for the whole ecosystem. A long-worded answer. So
no, I really like this example because it shows sort of the merger of these data sets. It includes the consumer being involved in this process and actual real-life results with improved credit. It's really wild. So take us back, I guess, into the creation of Boost and working with Fiserv. What was Experian's motivation for the technical efforts required?
It's a funny story. We spent years going to the utilities, telling them to full file. And some utilities do full file report. They report positive and negative information to the Bureau. Some do. But we spent years going out and talking to the utilities. Why don't you full file report? It's great for the consumer. It's great for your business. For various business and regulatory reasons, they don't want to do that. So that's where we came up with, let the consumer, through consent, furnish their own data to the Bureau. And that was the real epiphany. And here's the beauty of it, is the vast majority of credit score, your generic credit scores, your FICO scores, and your Vantage scores, bring utility type, they're called very specific, type 92 and 4D trade types into the credit scoring algorithm. The challenge has always been it's not very filled. There's not a whole lot of that data at the Bureau. So the consumer, if they have the data, it does benefit them. For various reasons, utilities don't want a full file report. This allows the consumer to provide that information in lieu of their provider. And that was the epiphany of it. We can drive these to the consumer's bureau in their bureau and see them increase their score. In our view, the utility should be reporting that anyway. They do report if the consumer doesn't pay. They just don't report the 96% of consumers that pay positively. That's what we're bringing to the table with Boost. So that was kind of the genre of it. And then it's just building. It's difficult. I'm sure people are going to try it. It's difficult. You have to have a bureau entity. You have to have a consumer entity that you can bring both together. It's a difficult process, as well as, I'm talking the aggregation capabilities. You have to bring all three of those together to get this to function properly in a great consumer experience. And that's really the consumer experience brings it all together and showing the consumer instantaneously, my credit score was 620. Now it's 643. You can see a huge increase instantaneously added to their bureau. So you pull their file a second later, that lender sees the improved credit score and sees the true credit worthiness of that consumer.
Fiserv, Paul, you want to jump in here?
I do, but only briefly, because I love Paul's energy, and we love the idea when we heard about it, because one of the things that we've been doing at Fiserv is as a traditional provider of aggregation and connectivity, right? We also run thousands of bank cores ourselves. We have this massive bill pay franchise. We have an amazing array of data that when consumers provide permission, we can allow access to for this array of use cases. And Zach, you and I have talked about this before. One of the things I think is so exciting about this space is that there's so many other good ideas, right? Like Experian Boost is a great idea, and there's so many other great ideas. And every week someone comes to us with another great idea and says, hey, if I had this data permissioned this way, I could do this thing and help these folks. So it's just an exciting time to be in this space. And we're excited for what the folks at Experian and Paul have been able to do.
Yeah, I know Paul Diegelman, when we speak, I always am impressed with like that bird's eye view that you guys have and seeing these new ideas floating around and how interesting it must be to see sort of like the industry, develop around the data, really, like new use cases and stuff that people hadn't thought of before. I find that really compelling.
Well, and we've begun to put a big push inside of Fiserv, right? We've got almost 1,000 products. Many of them have data that is available in use cases like this. Some don't. But we've begun a horizontal view across the enterprise of where are the pools of data that can be used to drive interesting use cases and create advantage for consumers outside of the use case where we acquired the data in the first place. So yeah, it's a super exciting time to be in this business. And I guess you can probably tell from the way I cast this every time we talk.
Totally.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is so exciting to be at the forefront of helping consumers improve their financial lives. And that is really, that's the win in all of this, is really helping consumers, making consumers that are, I'll call it the credit invisible, visible, making the underbanked bank. That's the unique piece of this. Like with Experian Boost, we can take the consumer who doesn't have a credit score, bring them data in and build a credit score for them. They go from I'm credit unscorable to a credit scorable. And what that means for consumers is amazing. I can now unlock the credit ecosystem for the consumer. And that is truly powerful. And it really changes consumers' lives. And that's really the huge benefit of all of this, in my view, of open banking and aggregation, is it opens the world for the consumer who was previously shut out. And that's what we should all be striving for, is to help consumers.
That's a great vision. And it actually points to my next question.
Yeah.
What do Experian customers get out of this? I know you've spoken about a few different things. Maybe I'd like to drill down a little bit further into specifics and why it matters to them so much.
Yep. Here's why it really matters is, I go back to the simple case is the auto lender. Think about if you went to an auto lender and they gave you a 25% auto loan. If they said, hey, you want to buy this $20,000 car? I'm going to give you a 72-month loan with a 25% interest rate to it. You're going to pay double or more price of the car. You would throw up on them and turn around and walk out of that car dealership. That's the consumer's experience. If you can improve their credit score, you put tangible dollars in their pocket. From the credit card world, I'm declined. I don't have any credit offers for me. Or I have alternative financial services offers that are, triple-digit APRs. If I can improve that consumer's credit score, I have a world of offerings to me that are now available to me to have extensions of credit, to get a credit product that I could never receive before. That's the true value of it, is really unlocking more access and financial power for consumers. That's really what we're bringing to the table. But there's a world of other products around that. If I can look at a consumer's mobile phone bill and say, you know what, you're paying $210. Do you know there's a better plan for you where you can pay $125 and save $75 every month? That's material change for a consumer. That's the power of the services that we bring to help consumers at Experian. And that's why we have over 50 million members at direct to consumer at Experian.
Hey, Paul, is the offering realizable because there's new data or faster data or both?
It's both, actually. It's brand new data, but it's instantaneously added to their credit profile. That's the real magic of it here. It's not 24 hours later. It's not 2 days later. It's, hey, I'm looking for a car. I see I'm doing a pre-qualification process at a dealer. Oh, before I do pre-qualification, why don't I improve my credit score so the dealer can show me the best offers that they have? Instantaneously, the consumer goes through Boost. In less than 3 minutes, they improve their credit score. When they go through that pre-qualification process, their new credit information flows into it, and boom, they have better offers than they would have before. And we have that in place with a number of auto dealers and it works fantastic. It helps consumers, qualify for loans as well as get better terms and rates.
So Zach, this is a place where I think Fiserv stands out, right? So we have the largest share of the bank bill pay market. We also have more bills in e-bill models than any other provider in the industry. So we have this massive pool of data that's available to us that advantages the billers, it advantages the banks, it advantages the consumers. And the connectivity that we have with all those endpoints, as well as inside of our own systems, is fairly significant. So it gives us very broad connectivity at high speed and very reliable, so that we can provide, not only bank and credit union and mortgage data, but also this bill data in this specific use case to someone like Experian.
That's exactly the case. It has to be with the consumer. The vast majority of consumers are interacting on their mobile phone. So it has to be right in that session. The aggregation has to work instantaneously. And that's what Fiserv brings to the table, is that, a great API stable structure that we can pull that data in and aggregate it and bring it to the consumer right there. This is your AT&T bill. Do you want to add it to your credit profile? Yes, I do. Instantaneously, it's added. Speed is key for the consumer experience. Consumers do not want to sit staring at their phone for 5 minutes as things spin in the background. They want that instantaneous. Here's your data. Great. I can add it to my credit profile.
I love that. And I want to now zoom out from some of that feedback that you guys provided and look at what this type of partnership says about the future of wellness. I'd love to hear both your perspectives on this.
You want to go first, Paul?
You can go first. I'll go second, since I've been monopolizing the discussion, Paul.
Hey, look, man, when we launch our own podcast called Two Paul D, we're going to share it'll be like Zach and Aaron with two CEOs, that kind of deal.
You got to grow a beard, Paul.
The other Paul's going to have to grow the beard because
man.
Do it. Honestly, Zach asked me the question again. It had to do with financial wellness.
Totally. Like I want to zoom out from the conversation we've had and said, like, what does this combination, this partnership, say about the future of wellness?
There's so many opportunities, this being an important one, but there's so many opportunities to allow consumers to share data of various sorts with third parties who have come up with really great ideas. You look at gig workers getting on-demand pay. You look at a number of applications and technologies that help people. They nudge them into savings or help them manage the money they have, or in this case, help someone share an additional data set in a faster time period, which then increases their credit score perhaps, and then helps them achieve some other form of lower cost or better opportunity. Like, there's so much of this. And I think if we all can just keep working together on what are these great ideas and where do we get the financial infrastructure and the plumbing to help propel them ahead, another year from now, we'll just have more of these incredible ideas to talk about on DataDay.
Before we get, I want to ask a follow-up question to you, Paul. Like, I guess given that, where does Fiserv decide what to build themselves and what to enable their partners to build? Like, where do you draw that line between being a pure service provider and creating products yourself? So
that's a wonderful question. So the team that Justin Jackson and I focus on is significantly focused on infrastructure. So we want to have the best connectivity, the best pipes with the best rails. We don't focus on building fintech apps, or we are here to enable fintech apps. And right now, that's Fiserv is known as a financial infrastructure provider, and that's a great place for us to be. So our near-term aspirations are to continue to add varying connections to different sources of data. And there's a lot of other sources of data out there. David and Wade talked about payroll. There's crypto data. There's an array of other opportunities that, when properly shared, create advantage for the consumer. So that's our focus. Got it.
Experian, Paul, what about the wellness and what this partnership speaks to about that?
Yeah, this is all that we're focused on at Experian is financial wellness in our direct-to-consumer businesses, how we can help consumers. Boost being the first prop, but we have, I don't want to unlock all, but you'll see in the next 5 to 6 months some very unique and powerful solutions that we're going to be launching into the marketplace to help consumers, beyond what Experian Boost does. when I think about, where we're, think about the credit invisible, the unbanked, when I think about, how do we put more dollars in the consumer's pocket? How do we lower their interest rates across all of their obligations? How can we make it easier for the consumer to obtain access to the credit that they want and need? So they're the products that we really focus on, and having access to incremental data outside of traditional furnished data it empowers all of those solutions for consumers to, across their financial lives. I always think about it, and I think about, how can I put more dollars in the consumer's pocket? How can we help consumers save? How can we build their financial resiliency? That they're all the things that we're thinking about. And so I don't want to give our product off but in the next 5 or 6 months, you're going to see 4 or 5 really unique solutions come to market that are truly, inspirational to help consumers.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you at the next post-product launch. We have time for a couple questions. You guys up to taking questions?
Always.
Of course.
We have one question from James Genthner. James, I'm going to ask you to come on screen. Let's see if you're open to doing that. To come on and ask your question. It's the most we can do to make it feel like a real conversation.
Can you see me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so yeah. So my question is around the unbanked. So a lot of what you're talking about is getting data through the banking system. What about the unbanked? How do you reach them, or what ideas are you guys considering to help them build their financial power?
James, can you introduce yourself first? Who do you work with?
So I'm retired, but I do work with 3 different universities on fintech topics.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm happy to take that from an Experian perspective. You're right. There's groups of consumers out there that are unbanked. Just because you don't have a bank account doesn't mean you're not at the credit bureau system. And that's really the partnership that we're talking about today, where I don't have a bank account, but I do pay my utility bill every month. I do pay my cell phone bill. You can aggregate directly to that cell phone bill and add that directly to your credit profile to improve your credit score and improve your financial health. So that's really what we're here talking about today, is exactly that. The consumer that doesn't have, for whatever reason, I'm not comfortable in the banking institution, but I do pay my utility bills. Well, great. We can add those utility bills to improve your financial health.
So who brings that knowledge to the consumer that they have the ability to do that?
We spend an awful lot of money on TV advertising Experian. If you've watched the Final Four, if you watched football, I hope you've seen one of our commercials. I hope you've seen John Cena and the big purple cow with Experian Boost. James, tell me you've seen one of the commercials.
Honestly, I don't watch very much TV, so.
Oh.
But we are working at some of the universities on coming up with fintech solutions to empower the unbanked and the underserved.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you, James.
Yep. Thank you.
We have another question from Shuman. Let's bring you on here. And please introduce yourself as well. Hey, Shuman. Welcome. And can you introduce yourself and ask your question?
Hello. Okay, financial services and technology journalist, and I also write for Tearsheet. A couple of weeks ago, it was reported that there was a government-backed initiative working with a bunch of financial institutions to help understand how to underwrite thin credit file customers. I'm just curious as to how, whether you had a view on that and how this type of initiative might help advance your mission of extending credit to the credit underserved.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm happy to talk to you further offline because it's a very complicated sort of situation that is unfolding. But it is one that we believe will ultimately bring opportunity and advantage to different cohorts based upon geography and economic level. So yes, there's a lot underway. It includes a number of the banks, a number of the tech providers. And yes, it does seem like it will bear some fruit, and it'll play out here over the next few months into 1 year.
Thanks, Shuman.
Yep, I would totally agree with you. It's a great, bringing transaction data in can only help consumers. And you're right. It's a multifaceted approach, which is fantastic for consumers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shuman.
Thank you.
And I think that's it for our time. So both Paul, thank you so much. This was really engaging conversation. I love the dynamic. You guys are both great. And I learned a ton about consumer permission data and where the future is headed for financial wellness. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Good to see you guys.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Take care.